We are looking good. Yes, welcome back to the Cage Chats pod. And those of you who have not seen me for a while, I am a man who is well fed off of enough turkey for definitely a couple of years. It feels like that was what I was up to for the past month. It feels like, even though I dropped a video, I think in early November. So can't even call it a month, but I am your host, Steve. Been called a wild card, been called bald and beautiful. And joining me today, man, it's an interesting guest for sure because you have quite an intriguing angle in the combat world, and he goes by Drew. It's good to have you on, man. You are someone who is trained in jujitsu and has done so for quite some time. Not only that, you are someone who has written about it and written about how you apply the philosophy of something that is as grounding as jujitsu to your life and really combat as a whole. But I think those are some things that when people they mention MMA and then they mention writing, they're like, oh, well, those are two completely different worlds. Not always the case, but I guess I should start by saying, how did you get into combat? And then how did you get into writing?
Sure, man. Well, first of all, thanks for having me, Steve. I'm happy to be here. My background, like you mentioned, is primarily in jujitsu. I'm a black belt. Been doing it coming up on 19 years now, and I honestly like writing was never something that was on my radar at all. It's something that kind of found me long down the path, and I think if I were like you kind of alluded to it already, that um, there's a through road between the martial arts and philosophy, and it's nothing new. In fact, you can go back to Sun Tzu or Musashi or whoever you want, and you're gonna find that there's poetry, there's philosophy, there's something to do with the intellectual arts applied to it. And I think that it stems from the art side of the martial arts. So when people think martial arts, they just think of the martial side, the war, the fighting, the actual combat. But there's an art side to it it's inextricable. It belongs there. And I think the longer you do it, the better you get at it, the more natural you are to it, the more those things flow. And so I found my way into writing a couple different philosophical treatises a couple years ago. And now primarily I'm focusing on nonfiction, which is to me even more interesting than I'm focusing on fiction because the other stuff was nonfiction. I find the fiction more interesting because you can get the same ideas philosophically out in a way that's more entertaining, which makes it accessible to a larger audience.
That's a great answer because uh, there are many layers to people, and your page I use as an example because when I got on Instagram, I swear you were one of the first accounts that I followed some years ago. It was around 2018, I want to say, or something like that, 2019. And I was looking at some memes and just very intriguing once I got onto your. I did a little bit of diving on your page. I'm like, no, there's a little bit more to this guy. And I love something like MMA because it really is. I talked to a friend of mine who used to live with him, and he's trained in both MMA and boxing. But one night we were driving through our hometown in Virginia, and he was telling me it's. I've always looked at MMA in a way as something that it's like mastering life, and writing is another area where it's no different than whatever hobby somebody has. You're mastering that too, but you have to pull just, if you want to write cartoons or if you want to write fiction or whatever you want to do, you have to pull that from deep down in yourself. You have to put the work in for it. And I admire you for following these two things that I think people would not look at as, like you could do simultaneously. It's an avenue that I don't think has been charted before in this life. And who are some people that influence you as far as writing goes?
Mhm. Well, for the nonfiction stuff, it was a lot of classic philosophers. So we can go back to the classics, whether it's Plato, Aristotle, Socrates, etc., or forward to the more contemporary ones, whether it's Jung or even like C.S. Lewis or people of the last century that were are sort of our modern day philosophers, although they were storytellers in their own right. But honestly, like for the stuff I've been doing more recently, diving into fiction, although they still have a strong influence on me, I actually coming to it from a more Japanese style angle, being anime is where I'm drawing a lot of my inspiration from, which actually has a lot of martial aspects to it as well. There's tons of fighting and battle, and I mean Japan is kind of the birthplace of the martial arts as we know it nowadays. So they've got a lot of that culture, that honor culture, the samurai, the Budo, the whole thing intriguingly intertwined to all their storylines. And for me, the one that really, really drove me to being like, I've got to do a fiction, like a full on epic fictional series, was Attack on Titan. So if you've watched that or anybody out there who has watched it, they know like that is peak story writing. I don't think there's a better story writer in our age right now than Hajime Izayama, who wrote Attack on Titan.
I've heard of that, and that's something that I need to do my homework on. I have a friend who he got me into a lot of different anime, and one show I remember, I swear they had written, he said something like 850 episodes at that time, and
Oh
that they
yeah.
were still writing them. So now probably into the thousands, and it's
Yeah, I
just
know the one. It's
that
called One
is
Piece. They're into the like 1100th episode plus.
wow. And we tried. I know that I got into like the maybe the 20s with him, and then I said,
Yeah.
okay,
That's a hard one.
that is
That's a
enough
life
for
experience one.
today.
You gotta dedicate yourself to that one. Attack on Titan is, I think, 92 episodes total, and I've watched it through 4 times start to finish. And honestly, it's better with each consecutive watch because it's such a detailed, intricate, interwoven storyline that you don't even understand what you're watching till the end, which makes you want to rewatch it so you can understand it from the beginning. And that's the type of story that I wanted to build. Something like a Celtic knot that doesn't really have a start, and you have to get through the whole thing and get back to where you started before you see the picture.
And is doing what you do, would you say that you have any aspirations to try and translate it to, like, say, if somebody offered you a TV show deal or something like that, would you pursue that sort of thing?
Yeah, definitely. So this is sort of the benefit and the detriment of my position is I can write. I figured out that I can write. What I can't do is like act appropriately to the level that I want to draw or animate. So I'm going to have to find some collaboration to do that. But it was written inspired by anime and really for anime. So I'm hoping before I die that I can get it actually translate into a visual medium and then like do it proper justice because there are action scenes all throughout this that are meant for visual action. There's like a tournament arc that's, I mean, speaking to martial arts, it's a whole tournament thing to it. There's all sorts of like striking specific movements that I try to recreate with words, which is more difficult to do than with action. So it'll be much more engaging. Not that it isn't engaging, but it'll just be that much more engaging with a visual aspect. So I'm hoping, like I said, that I can get in that direction.
It's a fascinating time for all of these, a lot of these things, especially that I feel like I saw in my childhood in the 90s to be brought to the screen today. Like right before we got on here, I saw that they're doing a live action movie for Street Fighter.
Oh,
And
that's right. Yeah, Jason Momoa is playing Blanca.
yeah, yeah, and Alexander Volkanovsky's in it. It's
Yeah.
just it's so interesting, these people who are, you think of them as one thing, and no, they're quite the opposite of one dimensional. And I love seeing the things like just when it's yeah, and then it turns into a project somebody wrote, and then what it can come out like on the screen, and that's what my fiance is kind of connected to that world because she does voiceover work, and
Oh, that's cool.
it's it's not easy. Yeah, it's
No.
a lot of work to anything that you're trying to do with it. But the writing part, I do feel like I've always said it's the toughest, and that's not just because I've had a passion for writing since I was a kid and written comedy and written articles and all sorts of things that I think are different from what you do, but I can appreciate it if from the start of it. It really is hard to put the pen to the paper. And, when you got into training, was that, were you watching the Jean Claude Van Damme movies, or was it like you were watching the UFC in the 90s? Or did it just
Yep.
come from like, wow, I was, some people watch boxing and then they translate kind of their what they learned from there to another medium.
Hmm. No, I always had a spirit for martial arts. I always wanted to do them as a kid, and I never was able to until I graduated and moved out of the house. My parents didn't want to pay for it. Like I wanted to get into kung fu and gung fu and karate and the whole thing because I wanted to be a Ninja Turtle since I was like 6 years old, you know? So there's always something that sparks that desire. And by the time I was actually able to do it, I'd been watching the UFC on VHS tapes that I would rent from like the Blockbuster around the corner for like 2 years. So I knew that like, oh, this is the coolest thing of all time. Like, give me a break. Hoist Gracie is beating this guy with one boxing glove on. Like, this is the craziest thing I've ever seen. And so once I got out of the house, moved away after I graduated, and I was in karate in like 3 months after that. As not the kid karate where you're like practicing katas the whole time. Like we were doing some full contact stuff and trying to be that Ninja Turtle person. Um, and then it just progressed from there. Like I was in karate for about 3 years. It's actually the tattoo I've got on my arm right here is from that style. Um, and then I got into Filipino weapon styles after that because you can't be Leonardo if you don't know how to wield a sword. So I learned how to, strike with weapons. And then uh, I was like, well, I mean, you can't be considered a fighter if you don't have a ground style. I've been watching long enough. Like the Gracies always win. It doesn't really matter as long as it's unarmed combat. You have to know what happens when it hits the ground. So I found a garage dojo that was the only one in the yellow pages at the time. To date myself, it was 2007 when I found it, and it absolutely spoke to me like no other style had so far. The striking styles were cool, the weapon styles were cool, but the grappling styles, I'm like, oh, this is real. Like it's not that getting punched in the teeth isn't real, but it's like in karate, you kind of pull your punches and the ref tells you if it was close enough. And with the weapons ones, you can't actually hit your opponent with a bladed weapon. So you don't really know what's going on. But in jujitsu, you strangle somebody till they tap and they tell you that you won, which is like the purest way of doing it. So for me, it was like, I know this stuff works. So I was absolutely hooked at that point and just addicted within the first week. And I trained, like I said, it's been almost 19 years now. And so you won't find me off the mats often.
That is, I can appreciate that journey, and it's crazy you mentioned the yellow pages because that's what my dad used to do for almost 2 decades, was sell yellow page ads. And he
Oh,
told
yeah.
me the first time he ever heard about the UFC, he was with some friends one night from work, and they were getting ready to pack it in, and this guy's like, hey, you guys want to watch the UFC? I have this blockbuster tape of it. And my dad was like, I have no idea, no earthly clue and they put it on, and they're all like, that whatever they are, in a different state than normal. And my dad is just watching it like, I cannot believe what I'm witnessing. And I had a friend one time who was saying to me, like, he watched either the full fight or some highlights of probably the biggest UFC fight ever, McGregor and Khabib, and he's like,
Mm.
I don't know. When I watch it, I think it's just a guy who is, wrestled his whole life versus a striker, and I'm like, well, it's not that simple, because how would a striker like Connor be able to stuff takedowns in that fight? Of course, we know how it played out, and that's another interesting thing that you said, is the way that you can get somebody to say, "No, I'm done. I've had enough," and that's kind of what hooks me on it, is just to, like they say, MMA math, you can never figure it out. Are you would you say some of your favorite fighters, they are, I would expect somebody like you who has a karate background to like somebody like Wonder Boy, but who are guys that you watched over the years, besides the Gracie family, who
Mhm.
are influences for you in the BJJ world, and I guess in the UFC too?
Yeah, I mean, anyone with a straight grappling style typically doesn't make it very far anymore. You have to have a pretty well-rounded style these days, although you can still come up with some specialists from time to time. Like I'll always watch Ryan Hall or, Damian Maya or any of those guys that are just known for their jujitsu. But I love the crazy good strikers too. Like I was a huge Anderson Silva fan. I love Cowboy Cerrone. I like uh, Adesanya is fun to watch if he's actually striking, if he isn't just backing up the whole time. Perea, like all these guys that are crazy good strikers, like artistic level strikers, that really lights a fire in me, and I'll never miss their fights. That's any of the up and comers that are like that, they'll catch my attention. I'm that kind of guy that's like I won't necessarily watch every UFC, but if there's a rising star, I gotta watch it happen.
Yeah, it was the first main event that I had missed in a long time, was this past weekend, the Peter Yan and Marab, and it's very crazy to see the journey that both of those guys have been on, because the weight cuts, I think, just finally caught up to Marab. But I mean, those two guys are. I expected it to be a lot more. I don't know. I expected it to go to the ground and be in Marab's favor more, but you watch something sometimes, like, with Islam when he fought Dustin Poirier. I mean, he outstruck him, and it goes to show that sometimes it can go one way, sometimes it doesn't. And yeah, those are a lot of the guys you mentioned. That's who I'm influenced by. Somebody like Izzy, and I mean, to see the journey of a guy like Poetan is just, because nobody was picking him in that rematch against
No, he was kind
Magomed.
of the villain figure coming into the UFC because he was like that unknown ghost from Adesanya's past that beat him in kickboxing, and so the storyline was he's coming to MMA to find Izzy. I'm like, okay, that's a fun story, but he's not going
Yeah.
to do well. You got a straight kickboxer coming in, he's going to get grappled, he's going to get choked, and he just leveled everybody. I was like, oh no, this guy's actually on Adesanya's heels. Like he's coming for Izzy, like he said he was. And sure as shit, he worked his way. He worked his way all the way to the top. He didn't have him fed to him any faster than he would deserve to. And then he beat him after nobody could beat this guy forever. I was like, oh wow, this is the biggest dark horse that I've ever seen rise. And it's kind of flipped at this point where he's now the favorite. He's become the people's champ in this way too, where yeah, he's got the skills, but everybody's cheering for him.
And I don't know who is a challenge for him at this point. I mean, I feel like Magomed might go a little longer if they had a third fight, but it would still go in Alex's favor. And the Hamzat fight, that's just. I'm not saying that Hamzat doesn't have a chance, but I don't know if there's. I don't know if I have as much interest in that one as I do in seeing somebody at his weight class fight a Poetan, because there are guys that should get proper attention, that weight class, at the same time. But for Hamzat, I mean, my God, I don't know who is gonna. I mean, again, they kind of painted Hamzat to be sort of, I wouldn't say a villain, but like there's some darkness to this guy. There's some mystery, and now it's like there's no mystery. He's just going to take you down, and like Habib said, just I take him into deep waters, and you learn who you are when you're drowning. But I like a guy like Fluffy. I feel like that's an interesting fight because Fluffy's a brawler, and that's a key is to not be uncomfortable under pressure with somebody like Hamza, where it's different in contrast to Poetan, just because the striking is next level, and that's what I didn't understand when he fought Izzy. I was like, I don't know. I mean, maybe there was still some mystique around Adesanya at that time, but I was like, I don't see him being able to outstrike Izzy. And then, it went to the ground in that first fight in the UFC, and Izzy was the one initiating the takedowns, but he
Yeah.
turned it up to another level in that first fight. And he
Mhm.
got the finish.
Yeah.
I just,
It was a crazy story to watch, and I mean to watch the comeback after two losses for Adesanya too, with that crazy sort of off the cage sliding hook that knocked him flat, and then he sort of mocked him with the arrow shots, and I was like, man, this is peak drama. I love this. This is like male soap opera in its best form.
oh my God. And you got a guy like Strickland who is just I for the first time I remember watching Strickland, I swear was when he fought Usman years ago, and didn't know anything about him until he fought Poetan. But it was that press conference where he Izzy did the now infamous line frozen like Elsa, and it was like Sean's an interesting character, and I was very curious to see how that fight would go, because also we didn't know a lot about Poetan at the time, and then he just God, the way that he took Sean out of that fight. But Izzy was the one where I think they really crafted a star overnight, because
Yeah,
people like us, I think we knew the backstory about Adesanya and Alex, but other people are like, Poetan, who is that? And just I love how they have that statue of a Poetan every time I go somewhere now, and I see that I think of his face
the
just
Easter
before
Island one.
fight. Yeah, it's like the way now that they show of Hamza before fights, and he's doing before he's going out there to fight. But I don't know with Usman, I really do want to see him run it back with Hamzat. I still feel like Hamzat would win that, but at least I would say a 5-round fight between the two, because Marty did just beat Buckley, and everyone was picking against Buckley again, including myself right here, and they're going to try and now do Usman and Islam, which is I don't know if I have the same interest for that, because Islam, I'd like to see Islam fight somebody who is like Shavkat, or
Sure, not a journeyman, hey.
yeah, and a guy like, I mean, they could do the Ian Gary fight, of course, and build it up to be, kind of McGregor and Beeb too. But I don't know, as far as champions at the end of 2026, from the top of the division, starting at the top to the bottom, who would you say you favor as champions in the I guess we could start with it would be why am I blanking on the name of the oh Aspinall.
Mm. Yeah, dude, I forgot about Aspinall. He's been waiting for John Jones for so long that I forget that he's actually, like, there to fight still.
Oh God, I felt so bad the way that fight ended with Cyril gone, because I just knew the internet was going to internet, and that's exactly what happened. The memes with the eye poke. But look, I mean,
Mhm.
that is
That
not.
was a savage eye poke, though. I
Oh,
mean, maybe he wasn't training properly for John Jones because he should have conditioned his eyes for that.
it's just, yeah, it's we all had to turn a blind eye to the fact that Bones was ducking him until he goes and gets out of that fight by an eye poke, and he's like, "Oh, I would have fought Tom all along," but I would
Yeah.
still, I'd love to see it. I mean, that those two, you could. There's a story now, I think, because at before all the duck talk started, I don't think Tom had the name yet, mainstream, and the Cyril Gahn fight going the way it did, it kind of helps him, right, in a way, because sometimes there's somebody who had a quote recently who said, in this day and age, a a loss makes you you're the public's champ, and it's a way to spin it. Like, even
Mhm.
though he ended that fight in a way, a lot of people's eyes a loser because they're like, oh well, he took the easy way out, which he didn't. But
Just about had his eyes separated from its socket.
yeah, you have to do some training to understand what he went through, I guess, or just have somebody, take a like that quarterback from the Bears, Jim McMahon, years ago, who was playing half blind. Like, the way he got blinded was somebody he got, or by himself, he got hit by a fork. So it's like, why don't you go ahead and do
Ooh,
that and tell me how that works out for you? But
yeah.
Aspinall, I don't think anybody's going to dethrone him, is what I'm getting at.
Mm. Hey, remind me because I get the numbers mixed up for the weight classes sometimes of who's where at these times. Is Poetan it's still at 85 or did he move up?
So he moved up, and he's talking about doing. They've mentioned the idea of, they're kind of all over the place, but Hamzat wants to fight him, and that'd be at 85. And then he's also
Mm.
mentioned fighting Aspinall and John Jones. That's what John Jones was
Yeah.
saying, was he wants to fight Poetan over Aspinall, which,
Mm.
in his defense, I think John Jones he's earned his place. I'll give him that, but it's one of those things where it's going to follow him around whether he
Yeah.
likes it or
He's
not.
got this strange asterisk by his GOAT status. You know what I mean? Like he's still literally undefeated. Forget about, the Mark, what was it, Hamill?
Oh
His fight.
yeah, yeah,
Forget about
Matt
that.
Hamill.
There we go, Matt Hamill. Forget about that one. He's still undefeated and over some of the biggest names of his time, over and over again. And rarely was it ever close. So he's got like this crazy sort of mystique to him, but at the same time, he's such a human disaster, an absolute walking dumpster fire outside the cage that people want to dismiss him. And it's like not even at the level of underdog or black horse. They just don't like him. And so, like, he's kind of fighting himself in this strange way, and I think he's taking L's more to himself than he ever would to anyone in the cage. That being said, I would still love to see him fight Aspinall. I think that'll be a fight that never happens. I would love to watch him fight Poetin. I think that Alex should go up to heavyweight. I think he's cleaned out 85 by a country mile, and he's way too big for that weight class. I don't think there's anything really that interesting in 205, but he would be undersized at heavyweight, which would be fascinating because he still hits like a freight train. So he's got that one touch kind of magic punch thing that certain people in the past have had. I'm trying to think, what was the name of that one heavyweight that knocked out Gabriel Gonzaga back in the day? He beats Brock Lesnar. Um,
Oh
you know the guy, right? I can't believe I'm blanking on his name right
yeah,
now. It's been that long. But he had
not
like the magic touch, the death touch that if it connected anywhere on your chin, you were lights out. And I feel like Poetan's got that plus accuracy. So he would be fascinating at heavyweight. I think he could knock people out still at that weight.
and yeah, with John Jones, I think it did play to his advantage to see him fight Cyril Gahn, because we haven't seen a lot of Aspinall in there. I mean, he's finishing people so quickly that
Mm,
that was what was building his name up, was getting those fast finishes. Whereas a guy like Poetan, I mean, at least he now has had, some fights that he had to gut out. I mean, Jan
Mhm.
Blachowicz and fighting Magomed to the bell the first time, that was different from Tom has just everybody expected him to go in there and beat Cyril Gahn very quickly, and it showed that he pressed him a little bit more, and he was getting some clean strikes in there, and Tom was bleeding right before it ended the way it did, and so it's just, I mean, and John Jones's fight IQ is
Yeah.
that's one thing I've never been able to take away from him, nor should we, because case in point, when he fought DC the first time, he was saying how he thought that Jones was going to exploit his weakness of getting the head kick snuck in there. And it didn't happen the first fight. Fast forward to the second one. I mean, it just the timing of how he dropped that is one thing, but also to when he drops the head kick on him to trip him up as
Mhm.
DC is woozy and taking back steps. That's
Yeah.
what Tom might have to do is he might have to get in there and just it'll be something he's never seen before. But I feel like if John Jones doesn't fight him on the White House card or
Mm.
at that time, at least, if even not on that card, he could be done. I mean, they have the perfect story
Yeah.
right there for July 4th, right? The Brit versus the guy from the US. It's a story.
Mhm. Well, here's a question for you then, speaking of John, because he's such this weird enigma when it comes to MMA in general. He is basically untouchable as far as his record is concerned. Phenomenal finishes over incredible names. Dumpster fire of a personal life that's kept him away from all of the good fights recently, including like legal battles and everything else.
Well,
What would be the proper end to his career then? Should he just call it at this point? Is he waiting so long that he's going to be that guy that just got fat on the couch and remembered the glory days and just gets wrecked by the new kid that's hungry? Or should he try to come back like GSP did with Bisbing and make a challenge and fight a difficult opponent and win and basically drop the belt in the garbage on the way out to say he's done?
if I am John, I feel like to separate yourself from your personal life and say that was what it was, but you can never take it away from me. Just to accept the challenge of fighting Aspinall is that's the route I would go at least. But I feel like John, I do feel like he's not done, but I haven't seen any activity from him. And I have to go off of that. I mean, I really do believe that he wants to ride off into the sunset, but the competitor in him, he's not going to let that happen. Now, do I believe that he'd fight Aspinall on the White House card? That remains to be seen, but I just something inside tells me that John is going to come back, and he's just stroking us the way he always has done, getting his belt taken away, and like, are we ever going to see this guy get his life together? Maybe he has at this point, but I feel like the fighter in him he's going to come back and, forget about the beating Stipe and, Aspinall and Gone the way it went. If they run Aspinall and Cyril Gone back, I expect Tom to win, and I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. I think it'll be a decision, but I think Tom will get a good unanimous decision. And once he gets the UD, I feel like there's no running from it. John will have to answer that question of,
Mm.
do I want this young guy to just get this off my back forever? Or am I going to just the mystery of it? I feel like the competitor in him will not let him get away with not fighting Aspinall. Because, yeah, like you mentioned, GSP, I think that was different because I going into that one, I was pretty confident that GSP was going to win because
Oh, you were?
Bisping.
Man, I was scared for him. I thought he was away too long. He was trying a heavier weight class he looked uncomfortable at. He did not look good in the first round. I was like, oh no.
Yeah, that's I remember I was having a problem with my connection that night in my house, so I had I found the fight somehow. I had my radio hooked up. Basically, like it was the fights were coming out of a speaker, but I couldn't see it, and I was listening to before that there was I think it was Cody and Dominic Cruz, and Cody won that one, which that was a shocker for sure
Mhm.
because I thought Cody went into that way too emotional. But then it was fast forward to the there was Rose, that's right, Rose and Joanna fought on that one, and then
Mm.
just Bisping. I knew that he had just gotten the belt and that he avenged the Dan Henderson loss, but something told me like Mike is not the same guy that he used to be. I was like, maybe if they would have fought years back, but I think I was underestimating GSP a little bit early there. Like, okay, this
Mhm.
is
Yeah, so was I. And I'm a GSP fan. I love him. He was one of my favorites in his era, but I was like, "Oh man, I don't want my one of my goats to come back and just get wrecked by the kid who's younger than him, who is the champ at a heavier weight class." Like, what a hard ask. So, it was kind of a romantic finish to his MMA career at that point. Maybe if I were to ask you to for the writer in you, if you could write the perfect finish for John Jones's career, he gets to fight Aspinall. How does that look? You got 5 rounds to do it. Maybe it's on the White House card. What does that look like for John's career to have the perfect end?
oh, perfect end. I would say is let's say it's the White House card. Jones is like the first couple rounds against DC and the rematch, just he's getting bested, and somehow, some way, he digs deeper than he ever has in himself, and he catches Tom, and sometime maybe like in the fourth round, and just starts to pepper him a little bit more, and then finally has this moment like I've got him, and just finally is beating him up, but surprises us and submits Tom. Now that's hard to deny because if he's able to find a way to beat him on the feet, but also submit him, there's no question that there because if he wins in a that way, if he's able to finish Tom anyway, really, I think that it's hard for them to go, well, there has to be a rematch. I would
Mhm.
see the UFC doing that very easily and being like, no, there has to be a second fight. But if Johns is able to come in after all that time off and get a finish over Tom, especially when Tom, if he's able to get a rematch against Cyril Gahn or fight someone else, and John ends it like that. I mean, especially at the White House, that's because that's the main event all
Oh
day
yeah.
right there. They're talking about Connor coming back being the main event against Chandler, but it's like really what is the point of doing that? But also there's not as much of a story there because you
Uh,
have Chandler is sliding at this point in his career, and I mean Connor's just been Connor for years now, but Connor outside of the cage. So I don't think there's as much. There's always interest when he fights, but
sure.
that one specifically, it's not like he's coming back and fighting Islam.
Mhm.
So it's really hard to bill that fight, and I just want to know what that card is going to shape out to be, even besides the main event, like because they're talking about doing more than one title fight on it, and it's like, well, how are you going to sell the tickets? Because I grew up, 2.5 hours away from DC, and that's no easy drive right there to get to. I mean, I had a
Yeah.
friend who lived 3 blocks from the White House, and I swear it took me like damn near an hour to get over there. It felt like most mornings, and even the mornings I wasn't hungover driving there.
Well,
But that
they'll probably be able to draw the international traffic in more than the local traffic. I mean, for a
right.
card like that, it's one of those once in a lifetime kind of things that it'll never happen again. So it'll get like all those people that are the, well off experience enjoyers that want to get in on that, and they'll fill the place up, I'm sure. I would just say, like, I love your finish to the John Jones thing. It has to go late into the rounds. It has to be without a doubt. There can't be any fluke or any eye poke. It has to be like a proper end where it's like, all right, he actually beat him for 15 out of 20 minutes pretty handily, and he got a finish before the end of the clock. And I would just say this, the perfect finish at that point would be for him to jump up on the cage, accidentally slip and fall on DC and get them both hospitalized. That would be a phenomenal end to the career.
Yeah, get the as Tony Ferguson would say, get the double knockout.
Exactly. Crash into the commentator both into the booth. It's just like, it's kismet, it's karma, it has to happen.
Just take out Trump and everybody falling down.
Trump, Rogan, they all get crushed under this guy.
It's like, and then people are stunned, and you hear silence, and you just hear Rogan under the table, like, oh,
Yeah, you got
and
Secret Service diving on them.
I just, yeah, that feels like for John to really cement his name, it's that way. It has to be him getting a finish. And maybe in his mind, he thought that was what he was getting beating Stipe, but I don't think so at that point. I mean, even
No.
though it was in front of Trump and it was a big win for him, it was a guy who was not supposed to be in there. And Stipe, I mean, it
Yeah.
wasn't like when you were watching, Tito Ortiz and Chuck Liddell fighting, and they're almost 50, but Stipe was over the hill, and it wasn't the same guy that had, ragdolled Ngannou and beaten
Yeah.
DC. So that, I mean, John, this might be the toughest point in life for John, which is strange to say after all he's been through with the news outside of the cage, but I can't wait to see what happens with him more than I think any other division next year. Now, that's because it's a little bit more clear most divisions that I think it's going to be Hamzat and Islam and Poatan. They're all going to be in their place, holding that belt, and just, because of the way that they have proven me wrong time in and time out. 155, kind of the same thing. I see it as it's really Ilya, whatever he wants to do, but
Yeah.
I don't want to watch. God bless Gaethje, because he's put his time in, but him and Paddy, it doesn't spark my interest, because I know they're going for the angle of, all right, Paddy beat Gaethje, who's kind of streaking right now because Gaethje's won 2 in a row, so they're gonna say, oh, he beat Gaethje, now he's got to go get the title fight against Ilya, but I don't know. I mean, I think Ilya and Islam have business that they have to settle, and that one's going to sell more than Paddy, which it's no dig at him. It's just I don't think he has as big a name as Islam Makhachev, and maybe that's what they're looking to do, is to have them at 170, which I don't want to see as much as 155, but I'll watch it.
Yeah. I feel
And
like Dana White always prefers a good Irish star, and so he'll kind of move heaven and earth to make it happen. But I feel you with what you're saying there.
oh yeah, and they're some fights at the same time just they don't make a lot of sense. Like with Volk fighting Diego Lopez again, that's gonna be like, all right, if I expect Diego Lopez to win this one, and then 135. I mean, they're obviously gonna go with Peter Yan and Marab again, but there's not going to, I don't feel like there'll be a lot of changes with the belts next year, but the biggest question to be answered really is John Jones. Does he come back or not? And that's going to shake up a lot because if he says no, then maybe they do go, okay, Aspinall and Poetan should have a super fight. There's not as many people, I feel like, who would know their names
No.
versus if there was a card with John Jones
Yeah.
on the
You don't have to
poster.
market that at all.
Oh, God, imagine if I'm just picturing now thinking of DC boxing John Jones, something like that. And I don't know. I mean, I would love to see John Jones box, honestly, but maybe that's just me.
Yeah, I would rather not.
Yeah,
He's so good of a martial or a mixed martial artist, it would be like a downgrade, I think.
it'd just be for the how fascinating it would be to see him in a ring. I mean, it's not
As
as
long as he
shocking.
never has to box a Paul brother, I think that's okay.
Oh, good Lord.
Or Anderson. That was just, oh my God, please stop. I don't like this ride anymore.
People were going after Nate Diaz and George Masvidal for boxing each other, but I did want to watch that one, I must say, more than I wanted to see Jake Paul and Nate fight because I had a feeling that Nate would not win, but he
Well, of
would.
course he's not gonna win. Like he's known for taking punches. That's like one of his primary attributes is he's punchable. So let's
Yeah.
put him in a ring where all you can do is punch. What's he gonna do?
And he was still going to end the fight and,
Yeah.
be down on the scorecards, but he was going to have some moment like when he was picking Jake up and like, yeah, I could
Yeah.
guillotine him if I wanted to, but God, I believe I'm going to be live for Joshua and Jake
Mm.
Paul. And
I heard
so
that there was like a take it easy clause. That was a story going around in their contract. So don't be surprised if it looks lame. I hope that I hope he breaks his contract to be honest, because it'd be better if he kept his reputation as a hard hitter than losing to a Paul brother.
it would be, yeah, for Joshua to do that. I mean, especially because Eddie Hearn's always taking shots at Jake Paul. And I mean, we have the footage of Joshua beating Ngannou the way he did boxing. So I feel like if there wasn't that clause, it could be even worse than that for Jake. But
Yeah.
I, I never know with these things because, like with Tommy Fury, I mean, that was just, I was so happy that Fury won, but I was like, are they arranging this to like somehow down the line when they want to do a weird angle to get Tyson to fight Jake
Right.
Paul? And maybe that's what happens if Jake Paul, there's a miracle or there's, Jake by wire transfer in round two. They, they're going to have him angle to say, now I want to fight the good Fury. Does Tyson come and take that fight? Uh, I don't think so, though. I would rather see, honestly, I'm a big fan of watching Joshua and Fury fight each other. I mean, especially at this stage in their careers, but I have to look and see who's on that undercard for Paul and Joshua because I know nothing about that card. I
No, neither do
watched
I.
little bit of that presser because I was sitting in my car where I had time to kill for an hour. So I was like,
Had a cool
literally got
necklace.
on.
That's all I remember.
Yeah, I got on YouTube and I was like, oh, yeah, that's today. And I have an hour to kill. This is perfect. So I watched it and it was just, Ariel being Ariel glazing a Paul brother at every chance he could get onto his knees. And it was, I mean, it's cool for Joshua at the same time because he deserves a big payday. But I wouldn't be surprised if it is Jake having his moments and going the distance, and then he'll be like, "Oh, look, I could hang with Joshua." And I mean, God, who would he go against next? Because he was talking about all these different people. Like, I'm trying to remember the name of the guy, Daniel Dubois. Yeah, wants to fight him, and then at the same time, like it's just so weird because it's like, yeah, he's at the level of Tommy Fury, but he's fighting Anthony Joshua. Weird times we live in. I don't know. I mean, that's
Yeah,
KSI
it's
and all those guys.
strange. It's strange. I mean, it's entertaining, I'll give it that, but it doesn't feel as pure maybe as it used to be. Like the entertainment value is more important
It's
sometimes in a lot of ways, certainly for the main cards, right? But like we were saying, like it's kind of become the male soap opera. Like if you follow the characters of the people, it's almost as important as knowing how they can fight or not.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And I mean that's where I think a guy like Darren Till would come in perfectly for Jake Paul. That was the one that I really did want next for Jake, and I didn't think we'd get because a guy like Darren Till from the UFC days, he's not gonna give Jake anything to work with in that presser. I mean, even if he's getting bested on the mic, he's gonna talk until he gets his point across. And I mean, Darren has the size in there, and that's where it just makes perfect sense too. Like you're gonna have Darren Till fight a guy like Carl Froch. No, you're gonna have him fight Jake Paul and end this
Yeah.
facade altogether. And then they give it to Anthony Joshua, but
Mm.
I feel like it's hard to take it seriously just because he seems like such a good dude, but it just at the same time, I thought all these guys were, the integrity they had it, and it's like no, they're
No.
chasing the bag, and so Darren Till, I feel like would be like, hold up, homie, I'm just. You saw what he did with Tommy Fury when in their press conference, where they just he just took apart Tommy and John Fury, and I think Tommy was scared to fight Darren
Mm.
Till. And that just shows that, I give Jake a lot of respect if he steps in there with Darren Till because he's going to get Darren Till. He stands no chance at a press conference with him. In the ring, might be the same thing because Darren could take punishment from the best of them, and that is not Jake Paul.
Yeah, yeah. Well, maybe that sells. Maybe that happens. So I guess we'll see. I just noticed my laptop is about to die on you, so I wanted to let you know that we may be down to the
Oh,
last little bit here just for technical reasons.
all right, no worries. Yeah, I was about to give my official prediction and say that yeah, I'm gonna take. I gotta go with my heart, and I'm gonna say Joshua wins by the third round. But at the
That'll
same
be great.
time, I I don't know with Jake Paul. I never trust those brothers, so I'm going on record that I would not be shocked if it goes the distance and
Yeah,
Jake loses. If he
that would be
wins,
funny, but I would be with your heart on that one as well. I want him knocked out.
like if Jake wins, then don't ever watch his fights again, people, because
Yeah, yeah,
the fix is in. I think it has been in, but I mean he trains, good for him. But if
yeah.
you want to get respect, actually go in there and don't pay mammoths off to throw a fight for you. And I'm not talking like Mike Tyson, who was a mammoth, because he would not have wanted those problems if it was a prime Mike Tyson.
No, of
Let's
course.
see. If somebody's beating people in his neighborhood up at age 11, that's somebody Jake Paul is going to stay away from in every facet. But man, this is awesome that we could do this. I know it was a week late, and I appreciate you rolling with everything. And
Yeah, no worries,
I
man. It was
definitely
fun.
want
Thanks for
to
the invite, Steve.
have to do it again, man. I'm sitting here wondering how, because it's sunny outside, but it's been cold all day in Florida. So I'm wondering what I
Mm.
have to wear to leave the house in a little bit here. So I'm like, yeah, I gotta go step outside first, but we will do this again, man, and absolutely appreciate your time. Appreciate your time.
All right, dude. Yeah, take care.
Yeah, you too, man. Wrapping it up. Thanks, guys.